Somewhere in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans, entire cities lie silent beneath miles of dark water. Streets that once echoed with human footsteps are now buried under coral and drifting sand. Towers that once touched the sky are now surrounded by strange fish and slow-moving shadows. And the most disturbing part is this: scientists are increasingly discovering evidence that these places might not be myths at all. For centuries, the idea of lost civilizations swallowed by the sea was treated as legend. Ancient storytellers spoke of magnificent cities destroyed overnight by rising waters or sudden cataclysms. Plato described the mysterious island of Atlantis. In Indian epics, entire kingdoms vanished beneath the waves. And in cultures across the Pacific, elders passed down haunting stories of cities drowned by the ocean. Historians long dismissed these tales as symbolic myths, warnings about human arrogance. But in the last few decades, something unexpected began to happen. Modern technology, sonar mapping, underwater archaeology, and satellite imaging started revealing strange structures resting quietly on the ocean floor. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet, yet astonishingly, we have explored less than 10% of it. The rest remains darker, less mapped, and more mysterious than the surface of Mars. Hidden beneath this immense blue wilderness are continental shelves, ancient river valleys, and landscapes that were once dry land thousands of years ago. During the last ice age, sea levels were dramatically lower than today. Vast regions of the world's coastlines were once fertile plains where early civilizations could thrive. But as the climate warmed and glaciers melted, the oceans slowly rose, sometimes by hundreds of feet, swallowing entire landscapes that humans once called home. One of the most striking discoveries emerged off the coast of Japan. Beneath the waters near Yonaguni Island lies a massive stone structure that looks eerily like a submerged pyramid. Giant steps descend into the ocean floor. Sharp edges form terraces and platforms that appear almost too precise to be natural. Some researchers believe it could be the remains of a lost city more than 10,000 years old, built before the end of the last ice age. Others argue it is a geological formation sculpted by natural forces. Yet divers who explore the site often describe an unsettling feeling, as if they are swimming through the ruins of something deliberately constructed. Another mystery waits beneath the waters of India's Gulf of Khambhat. In the early 2000s, sonar scans revealed enormous geometric shapes buried under layers of sediment. Further investigation uncovered artifacts, stone tools, fragments of pottery, and structures that resemble walls and foundations. If confirmed, these ruins could belong to a civilization far older than the earliest known cities of human history. Older even than the Great Pyramids of Egypt. It would mean organized societies may have existed thousands of years earlier than historians once believed. And these are not isolated discoveries. Along coastlines from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, divers continue to encounter submerged temples, ancient roads, and entire settlements frozen in time beneath the sea. Some were swallowed slowly as oceans rose over centuries. Others may have disappeared suddenly in catastrophic floods or earthquakes powerful enough to redraw entire coastlines in a single night. Each discovery raises an unsettling possibility. What if parts of human history, entire chapters of our story, are missing because they are literally hidden beneath the ocean? Because if even one of these submerged cities proves to be truly ancient, it would mean our understanding of civilization itself is incomplete. Humanity may have risen, advanced, and collapsed more times than we realize. And if that is true, then somewhere in the darkness of the oceans, the greatest lost civilizations in human history may still be waiting to be found. To understand how entire civilizations could vanish beneath the ocean, we must travel back to a time when the world looked dramatically different. 20,000 years ago, during the peak of the last ice age, enormous glaciers covered vast parts of North America, Europe, and Asia. These frozen giants locked away unimaginable volumes of water. As a result, global sea levels were more than 100 meters lower than today. Coastlines stretched far beyond their modern borders. Areas that are now submerged continental shelves were once enormous plains filled with rivers, forests, and fertile land, perfect environments for early human communities to grow and evolve. For thousands of years, people built settlements along these ancient coastlines. Like modern cities today, these early societies depended on water for food, trade, and transportation. Rivers connected communities, while coastal plains provided fertile soil for agriculture. But when the Ice Age ended, the planet began to warm. The glaciers started melting at a scale almost impossible to imagine. Over thousands of years, trillions of tons of ice turned into water and slowly poured back into the oceans. Sea levels rose steadily, creeping inland year after year. Entire landscapes disappeared beneath advancing shorelines. Villages were abandoned, forests were flooded, and the evidence of these early civilizations slowly vanished beneath layers of ocean sediment. But sometimes the process was not slow. Geological records show that the melting of ancient ice sheets occasionally triggered sudden surges of water, events scientists call meltwater pulses. In some cases, sea levels may have risen several meters within just a few centuries, or even faster in localized regions. Imagine living in a coastal city where the shoreline advances further inland every generation. Fields begin to flood, freshwater sources turn salty, storms push seawater deep into settlements that once stood far from the coast. Eventually, entire communities are forced to migrate, leaving behind homes, temples, and infrastructure that would soon be claimed by the ocean. Modern underwater archaeology is beginning to uncover evidence of these lost landscapes. Using advanced sonar systems, researchers can now map the seafloor in astonishing detail. These scans reveal shapes that resemble ancient riverbeds, road networks, and even building foundations hidden beneath layers of sand. In the Black Sea, for example, scientists discovered an ancient shoreline preserved nearly perfectly underwater, when the Mediterranean suddenly flooded into the basin thousands of years ago. The rising water sealed entire prehistoric settlements beneath the sea like a time capsule. Yet the deeper researchers look, the stranger the discoveries become. Off the coast of India, sonar images from the Gulf of Khambhat revealed massive grid-like patterns stretching across the seabed. Some structures appear aligned with geometric precision that resembles urban planning. Divers recovered artifacts that may date back more than 9,000 years. If verified, this would push the timeline of organized civilization back thousands of years earlier than the rise of Mesopotamia, which historians traditionally consider the birthplace of civilization. Another mysterious site lies near the island of Bimini in the Bahamas. Beneath shallow waters, a long formation of massive stone blocks forms what appears to be a perfectly straight road or wall stretching across the ocean floor. Some researchers believe it could be natural rock fractured by geological forces. Others argue the alignment and size of the stones resemble human construction. The formation's eerie resemblance to a paved roadway has led some to speculate about a lost Atlantic culture, possibly inspiring the ancient legend of Atlantis. But perhaps the most unsettling realization emerging from these discoveries is not simply that ancient cities were lost to rising seas. It is the possibility that entire chapters of human development occurred along these now submerged coastlines. The earliest innovations, trade networks, early architecture, social organization, may have taken place in regions that now lie hundreds of feet underwater. If true, the archaeological record we rely on today may only represent a fraction of humanity's true past. And that raises an even deeper mystery, because if civilizations once thrived along these forgotten shorelines, how advanced did they become before the ocean erased them from history? If the ocean truly hides the remains of ancient civilizations, then the implications reach far beyond archaeology. Because history, as we know it, is built from fragments, ruins preserved on land, inscriptions carved into stone, and artifacts buried in soil. But if some of humanity's earliest societies developed along coastlines that are now submerged, then a massive portion of our story may simply be missing. Entire cultures may have risen, flourished, and vanished long before the civilizations we recognize today ever appeared. Consider the timeline of human civilization. According to traditional history, the first complex societies emerged around 6,000 years ago in places like Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. These cultures built cities, developed writing systems, and constructed monumental architecture. But human beings have existed for more than 300,000 years. For most of that time, we imagine small groups of hunter-gatherers scattered across the planet. Yet the discoveries beneath the ocean hint at something far more complicated. They suggest that the earliest experiments with organized societies may have taken place in coastal regions that no longer exist. During the end of the last ice age, sea levels rose by more than 100 meters. To visualize this, imagine the ocean climbing higher than a 30-story building across the entire planet. Vast plains vanished, river systems disappeared beneath expanding seas. Coastal cities, if they existed, would have been among the first casualties. Unlike structures buried on land, ruins beneath the ocean are constantly reshaped by currents, sediment, and marine life. Over thousands of years, evidence of human activity can become almost impossible to recognize. But occasionally, the sea preserves secrets instead of destroying them. In the Mediterranean, archaeologists discovered the sunken Egyptian city of Thonis Heracleion, once a thriving port that connected ancient Egypt to the wider world. Statues taller than a human being now lie toppled on the seabed. Temples, ships, and entire neighborhoods remain frozen in time beneath layers of silt. For more than 1,000 years, the city was believed to be nothing more than legend. Then underwater exploration proved that it had been real all along. Discoveries like this force historians to confront an uncomfortable possibility. If one entire city of such importance could vanish so completely from human memory, how many others have disappeared beneath the ocean without leaving a trace? The answer could be staggering. Today, more than 40% of the world's population lives near coastlines. The earliest civilizations likely followed the same pattern. Water meant food, transportation, and fertile land, but it also meant vulnerability. Earth's oceans are not stable boundaries. They are constantly shifting, rising, and reshaping the planet. Geological forces, climate changes, and sudden natural disasters can redraw coastlines with terrifying speed. Earthquakes can cause entire regions of land to sink. Massive tsunamis can wipe out cities in minutes. And rising seas can slowly erase civilizations over centuries until nothing remains but silent ruins beneath the waves. Which leads to a haunting reflection about our own future. The same forces that may have destroyed ancient coastal civilizations still exist today. In fact, they may be accelerating. Modern climate change is once again causing global sea levels to rise. Coastal cities around the world face increasing threats from flooding and erosion. What we consider permanent infrastructure may one day become submerged relics studied by distant descendants. Civilizations often believe they stand at the peak of human progress. But the ocean reminds us that permanence is an illusion. History may not be a straight line of advancement. It may be a cycle, one where societies rise, innovate, expand, and eventually disappear, leaving only fragments scattered across the planet. And somewhere, in the silent darkness beneath the oceans, the ruins of forgotten worlds may still be waiting, not just as mysteries of the past, but as warnings written in stone about the fragile future of our own civilization.